Skeletons are boring, right? I don't think so. Undead are terrifying, tragic, tactical nightmares, and they're some of my favorite monsters if you run them creatively. Today we'll talk about how to turn your average zombie encounter into something your players won't stop talking about. So let's talk about raising the dead, creatively. And welcome to Whispers from the Phylactery. So with a name like that, I don't think it's any surprise that I love undead. We're here in my crypt. If there's a game where I can be a necromancer or utilize the power of the undead, my choice is pretty set. I mean, they're one of the most versatile enemy types in role-playing games. They can show up in any biome at any level, and they come with built-in flavoring. I mean, what other enemy type can be used for horror, tragedy, and slapstick comedy? And sometimes, I mean, that's all in the same session, right? You have your zombies milling at the doors trying to break in, or your skeletons clattering out of a musty crypt to a lich pulling the strings of an entire kingdom. I don't know. I think their range is wild. And since they're immune to things like mind-affecting spells and crits depending on the game system, they force your players to switch up the usual tactics. It's all great and good if your rogue's been cutting down knights with ease as they hack through the royal guard into the mausoleum below, but this one knight in black armor seems impervious to the small openings in their armor. So let's talk about low-level undead. I mean, a lot of them are skeletons and zombies. They're not very tactical, they're damage sponges. But I prefer to use the environment in this case, where the party's walking through a mausoleum. They're hunting down the necromantic cult, or hopefully they know that they're facing down a necromantic cult, and they're going through a charnel abattoir that the cult's victims have been tossed into after the ritual sacrifice. And halfway through the chamber, the bones start to rattle and animate. I mean, should they have made some perception checks ahead of time, or had the cleric be a little extra vigilant? Maybe. If they didn't, now they have a few seconds before the bones animate to think of a plan. Or a party walking through a deserted graveyard or long-forgotten battlefield, and there's a pulse of dark energy, and zombies start pulling themselves up from the grave. I don't know. I think surprise ambushes with low-level minions can be a lot of fun, and I do like to just toss them in as little samplers for the things to come. And I mean, if you want to make it creepier, have them, if they're facing zombies, have them moaning names that your players recognize. Friends of theirs from town that they've been dealing with. The villains caught wind of it and they haven't been happy with the players meddling. So they sick those loved ones on the players. And now there's an emotional toll as the players need to decide, like, can you cut down your friend? Even if they aren't who they used to be. Or if you want to just make things a little bit extra scary for the cleric, they blast an undead with a ray of light, but it doesn't quite seem to work as well. The dead are coated in grave dirt from a corrupted pleat, blessed by a corrupted priest. Sometimes I know talk good. I don't know. Little things like that where it's that oh no moment until they make a knowledge check and they realize that fire is more effective on this particular type because of this blessing. It's made them more dried out and tindered. And then we start getting into the higher levels of undead. I mean, by the mid-tier, you've got ghouls, wights, mummies, things that are starting to get intelligent and cunning. Abilities like paralysis or disease can really up the tension. I mean, if your front line fails a critical fort save and the fighter is paralyzed from a scratch from the ghoul's claws, now the back line has to somehow compensate. They can either try and retrieve their comrade or push the ghoul off of them. I mean, that's drama, right? And that's what we like to create. We like to create story. So status conditions, I mean, I know players hate it sometimes, but it's part of the games. And if you need to make that choice where things are dire, the endless horde is closing in, I don't know, I like it. The fear in their eyes. And I mean, if you need a boss, you could just throw a lich at the party. The ultimate arcane spellcasters, masters of undeath. They know 50 ways to kill a man with a simple cantrip. I think just throwing a lich without any warning, though, is boring. Because what are they going to do? I mean, they show up, they throw on some high-level spells. They might cast blindness or fear. Well, blindness will ruin a party's day, especially if you cast it on one of the backline. And all of a sudden, your cleric can't see to heal people. That is terrifying, but it doesn't really it doesn't have a punch, right? So I find it best to sprinkle these things leading up, as with almost any villain. You don't want them just appearing out of nowhere, unless that's the twist you're going for, right? So show signs. The townspeople are hearing of a voice from the grave, or a growing number of graveyard thefts as the lich gets closer to completing some vile ritual. They need the corpses of people that have been slain unjustly, accused of a crime. Let them leave clues so that the dreams are prophetic and villages are emptied out and left to waste with no one knowing until scouts later arrive and it's empty save for a trail of dried blood leading into the woods. Especially with undead, let players dread the moment that they meet them. The unknown, the hype. And bosses don't have to be liches, right? I mean, liches are the iconic undead, but I'm also a really big fan of grave knights from Pathfinder. Warriors whose zeal in battle left them so unwilling to die that they simply refused. Their soul inhabits their armor. They are a martial lich. If you strike down a gravelord, the body will decompose in a matter of seconds and turn to ash, and their armor remains, but it bears that stench of undeath. And if the party takes it or tries to utilize it, I mean, the common thing that happens is the gravelord soul possesses whatever body wears the armor, and it will take that body and adapt it into the one it had in life. And now the gravelord is back, and heaven forbid that your fighter was wearing it, because if you don't notice in time, you wake up in the morning with a sword in your gut from a gravelord that is very annoyed that you killed them. That's a really mean trick. I don't like to do that. The clerics or casters should have some kind of ability to notice this ahead of time, because that's just like, well, your character died. Really sorry, man. That sucks. Don't do that. But if the warnings are there and the fighter starts making checks, like the armor is always exquisite quality, it's magically enchanted to the gills. So it's a real temptation of like, of course I can fight off this evil influence. I mean, look at this thing. This is a sweet suit of armor. It's got fortification to resist crits, and I can, it's immune to everything but adamantine. Like I could get swallowed by a dragon and come out fine with this thing. But then there's that will save at the end of every day, and it starts to get a little harder. They fail one or two checks and people around them start to comment like, you've been kind of aggressive lately, or like, did you always order a drink like that? Like, instead of just I'll get two, it's I'll get two. Little mannerisms from the gravelord bleeding into the player. I really like those kind of things. And then, of course, it's not so simple to destroy a Gravelord's armor. You can't just melt it down in a forge. These are magically enchanted items of fairly significant importance. Sort of the thing like it needs to be bathed in the fire of an ancient red worm or tossed into a volcano under the blessings of a priest to sort of destroy it and free the soul trapped within for good. So there are options. And I mean, like, there's Draco Liches, and okay, there's a lot of Liches. Let's not get that confused. There's a lot of Liches. But yeah, Liches are cool. I mean, you kill somebody and they come back and they're really angry because you took their stuff. And they've had centuries of thinking how to kill you, or anyone that steals their things, really. Demi-Liches aren't really good as bosses just because they're mindless undead. A Lich that's been existing for so long that it's grown bored with life and its research, and it returns into its mind just to think and theorize, and the Lich gets consumed, forgetting to feed on fresh souls. So, I mean, they're great, like, little traps and encounters because they defend their treasure in their room, but they're not really good bosses. They're not super intelligent. They attack reflexively. They're more mindless than what they once were. Yeah. These are very conversational. I want to keep it light, and I want to just talk through things. And these are some of my favorite things. So, yeah, there's a whole host of undead that can be bosses. And vampire lords, of course, are another iconic one. I've got some good stories about vampires that I've run previously. And I mean, everyone knows Strahd from Curse of Strahd, Wizards of the Coast. That one's big. He's sort of the iconic horror villain, the dashing debonair monster with a temper to match. Yeah. So, tactics with undead. I mean, undead don't need to be dumb, right? If there's a bunch of zombies, they're going to go and attack whatever the heck they want. The skeletons, they might guard something, or they might go and attack whatever the heck they want. What really gets scary is when there's a necromancer or some higher level of undead that is able to control and guide their counterparts. I mean, if there is a Grave Knight, or even lower necromancers, let's just stick with lower level ones for now. A fledgling necromancer can still organize a mass of zombies, even 5 or 6, into a meat wall that marches on the town guard, while skeleton archers sit in the back and pick people off with eerie precision. I mean, they can see through the dark. They don't care. They just sense that there's life over that direction, and they fire unerringly with the instincts they had when they were alive. Like a ranger that came back as a skeleton, retaining its basic memories and actions, just firing arrows with precision. It gets really tricky when this damaged sponge of a wall approaches the party, and if the fighter tries to run around, then they're separated from the group. They're leaving their backline undefended while the zombies approach, just to get to the necromancer who might have other minions lurking nearby. But of course, if you stand and fight, you're just taking damage from afar and the necromancer's spells. And of course, this doesn't have to be a magic user. It can also be like a more intelligent skeletal champions that retained sparks of their intelligence when they were alive. They might have been cunning warriors or strategists, and they can direct their companions and give them orders that will be obeyed. So I just want to say that undead don't have to be simple, right? They can be laying in wait, going back to the example from earlier, and the skeletal warrior is instructing his bony minions that are guarding this crypt that the party wants to break into. He could hold them at bay while sending a link for reinforcements to come from the nearby chambers, either flaming floating skulls or some sort of other undead that has a bit of maneuverability. There's options. That's what I want to say, is that there's options. And I'm a big fan of using the environment. Like, the party opens the sarcophagus, and the rest of the sarcophagus is open in kind. There are undead occupants being disgorged forth. Yeah, so, but, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of cool ways to use them, but we also want to empower players, right? So, if you give them advantages and tactics, you want to consider giving the player something too. I mean, players love to feel clever, right? So give them clues ahead of time. If they learn that silver weapons weaken these particular skeletons, it works the same as blessed by a priest. They do more damage, or they can negate the DR requirement from a slashing weapon. To be clear, most editions use bludgeoning damage against skeletons, but in this example, like a silver weapon would do full damage to the skeleton. If you use a sword or something else like that, it disrupts the negative energies that fuel the undead. Or your cleric might discover that radiant-based spells, light spells, push the undead back more than they normally would. They send out a holy bolt, and the zombie staggers back, flung with the force of the blast. And that's not something that typically happens. So little terrain pitfalls can turn that from just a boring, like the White Room fight, I hate White Room fights so much, into something that matters a bit more, where there's open graves around the party, and the cleric blasts a zombie, and it stumbles back and falls into the grave, removing it from the fight. So now the question is, can you get to the larger zombie, or the leader of the horde, or the necromancer, or something like that? And can you use that positioning to shove them out of the fight, temporarily even, and give you a better chance where they need to waste their turn or actions? And now suddenly it's a puzzle utilizing the terrain. I like that. I don't like just White Room. So, I don't know. Undead aren't just monsters. They're tools, they're metaphors, they're ancient curses, lost lovers, failed gods, and frankly, they're bad decisions with legs. So the next time you throw undead at your party, don't just roll initiative. Ask yourself, what story are these undead trying to tell? And if you've got a favorite undead encounter or a cursed necromancer story, drop it in the comments. I love grave robbing, and I mean, getting inspired by other GMs. That's a nice way of putting it. And if you want more videos like this, hit the like button like it owes you a resurrection, and consider subscribing. So until next time, adventurers.